So, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is directed by Quentin Tarantino and is his ninth feature, according to him at least, because he says Kill Bill is one movie. Whatever. Anyway, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? After my first viewing, I felt pretty strongly about it, and I started my review, but I think about halfway through it, I kind of quickly realized that I felt like I needed to have a second viewing under my belt. I really liked this movie. Like, I really, really, really liked it the first time. I loved it the second time. Something about the world and these characters makes you really, like, soak it in the second time. It felt like, after seeing it the first time, and I was dying to see it again, I felt like I missed the characters. I felt like I missed hanging out in this world. It really draws you in. Part of that is the production design, which is top notch in this film. The recreation of late 60s Hollywood is basically as perfect as you would expect from Quentin Tarantino. It just feels so seamless. Like, at no point do you feel like you're on a lot, or it just feels like the geography doesn't make sense in the scene. It's all very, very well executed. His attention to detail is part of it, right? I mean, he has era-accurate commercials playing on the radio. He has, like, advertisements for films that were in theaters at that time, and advertisements for products that were popular at that time as well. I mean, there's just so much attention to each little detail that it really shows in the grand scheme of things. Besides the incredible production design making me want to just luxuriate in that world, the fantastic character work in this movie is the main selling point to me. Honestly, all of the actors are doing tremendous work here. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt are so damn good in this movie. I've actually never expressed this to anyone but close friends, but I definitely think it's worth noting here. I've always been someone who says, like, listen, I like Leonardo DiCaprio. I think he is a good actor. But everybody kind of blows him out of proportion and saying, like, oh, he's like the greatest actor of our generation and we're so lucky to have him. And it's like, all right, everyone, just calm down. You know, like, he's a good actor. He is capable. But I've always been like, let's all just calm down for a second. That being said, Leonardo DiCaprio is straight up incredible in this film. This is easily his best role. I don't care what you say. This is his best. This is the movie he should have won the Oscar for. Fuck The Revenant. All right, I guess that's kind of harsh. And I guess he could still win, technically. Whatever. But it's funny, when they first cast him, obviously I'm like a contrarian. I was like, oh man, here we go. The Leo love train's going to be all over this. But I could not be happier to be more wrong. Like, as soon as I saw the movie and I saw that they were spoofing, like, different genre of film and, like, having Leo be the lead in those films, and, like, it's perfect casting. It makes so much sense. And conversely, on the literal exact opposite side of the spectrum, I've always loved Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is the hell of an actor. And again, I think this is his best work to date. He is phenomenal in this movie. He's by far my favorite part of the whole film. I don't care about the Academy Awards, but these two need to be on the nominations. It's going to be kind of weird because they're both leads, but we know how they will sometimes cheat to have one of the co-leads be as a supporting actor. Whatever. Either way, they both need to get nominated. They both should win. Well, I guess I can't say that because I haven't seen a bunch of movies yet, but they are worthy of nominations. I can say that much. Another big point I want to bring up is the story, which might be kind of the weakest part, I guess. Why I say that is, like, the plot is pretty thin. It's kind of like just a framework to lay on for these characters to interact with each other. And though the actual, like, plotting is maybe a little thin, the writing is still exactly what you think it is. It's still sharp dialogue. It's very dialogue driven. There's tons of conversations. There's long shots of just Brad Pitt driving down the highway with, like, some random obscure 60s song playing on the radio. So the plot being maybe a little thin, I guess, is kind of a negative, but that and the pacing at times can be, like, a little sluggish. I felt this way more on my first viewing. Like, the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, all right, where is this going? It was kind of rooted in the fact that I wasn't sure of the story. Like, it felt very unpredictable, which in a sense makes it, like, compelling, but at the same time, it kind of made me feel like, okay, when are we going to get to, like, things happening, so to speak. Another minor complaint of mine would be Margot Robbie. Not her performance. She's good in the movie. It's just I think she was kind of not utilized very much. I mean, the scenes that she does have are pretty great. She brings like this really carefree but heartfelt and like almost like whimsical performance, and this whole movie has like this whimsical fairy tale quality to it, and she does well with the scene she has. I just wish they gave her maybe a little more to do. This film also has some of Tarantino's newer like tropes that he's been relying on that I'm not the biggest fan of. Pointless narration is one of them. Even if it is coming out of the mouth of one of my favorite actors, it still felt like, oh, okay, well, we couldn't see this information, so we need to have it told to us. And like, I get why he does it, or why he did it in this movie. I mean, the runtime is already so long, and he needs to get a bunch of information across that there just isn't time to get into the movie. Which brings me to my next problem, I guess. I mean, I say that way because it's not really like a problem that I had with the film, but a lot of people seem to have a problem with the runtime of this movie. It's clocking in at about 2 hours and 45 minutes, so it's a pretty long movie. Which on one hand, I don't really get why everyone's like freaking out about it. I mean, his last film, The Hateful Eight, was also like 2 hours and 40 minutes. And if you watch the Roadshow version, it was like 3 hours, but that one had an intermission. But I think like the regular one didn't have the intermission, so it's like the same thing. I don't know, whatever. I think that's going to be the main drawback for this movie for a lot of people is the scripts or the story just being pretty thin, the pacing being pretty like slow burn, and then the length of the movie. Like those three things combined, I definitely can see why like a lot of general audiences are probably not gonna side with this movie or gonna say that this is not one of his best. And the other big, I think, problem most people are gonna have with this movie is the ending, which will definitely be a spoiler. I've mostly avoided spoilers for this review, but I want to talk about this point just briefly here. So yeah, the ending. Much like Inglourious Basterds, this is historical fiction, and he really leans into that with this ending again. And since I was more or less familiar with the Manson family murders and what ultimately ends up happening with Sharon Tate, that whole like event is kind of looming in the background. It looms over the film like a presence. You're just kind of like waiting, like when is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? Which I think pays off beautifully when it subverts what actually happens, and obviously history is altered in this movie. So Cliff and Rick Dalton just obliterate these three, and I found it incredibly satisfying, but I could see why some people are a little upset with it. The main complaint I've seen is that he harbors like a resentment for women. This is Tarantino, I mean, that he harbors a resentment towards women or something, and it shows in his filmography because there's always like violence against women. And I could see that, and I'm not the voice to speak on this. I'm really not, so I understand that much. But for me personally, I didn't feel that way about the scene and how it was handled in the context of the movie and in the context of real life as well. The other people I've seen complaining about the ending and kind of how it was all framed is people saying like how they're set up in the movie, how the Manson family is set up in the movie, it doesn't make them feel like very villainous or like very evil. And so by the end, like it feels like overkill. Like some people said they felt sympathy for them. Like I don't know how you could even say that if you're aware of what actually happened in real life. People are saying that like, oh, it's a movie and it's a movie's responsibility to show that in the film, like in the filmmaking. And I guess I kind of get that, but part of filmmaking and part of movies is you bring in your knowledge and your experiences and your beliefs into the film, and your interpretation is part of that. And so I don't know, I kind of disagree with that as well. I also think the film very intentionally doesn't want to give them the credit of depicting them as this like organized and brutal group, instead choosing to paint them as bumbling idiots instead of this big evil force. To me, it takes the air out of their legacy, so to speak, and I found it to be like the cherry on top of anything. Anyway, after my first viewing, I thought I had a pretty good understanding about how I felt about the movie. I thought, I really liked it. I think I was going to give it something like an 8, like a 7 or an 8 maybe. After rewatching it and after sitting with it for a couple more days, I found myself liking it more and more, and I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. I think it's fantastic. Have you seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? What did you think about it? Sound off in the comments, let me know. Also, be sure to subscribe. I'm going to be doing a giveaway for my first 1,000 subscribers. I haven't decided what. I think it's just going to be like a gift card with some money on it. You buy yourself something nice. But more details on that soon. And until next time, take care of yourself.